Hi guys, it's Bo here. A thing I've been wondering about for a really long time, maybe even my whole life, is the question if you can reconcile God of the Old Testament with God of the New Testament. And here's my issue. It seems to me that God should always be the same. But when I read in my Bible, it also seems like God is really different in the Old Testament versus the New Testament. So what's the deal? Let's just start with summing up some of the characteristics that God has in the Old Testament and the New Testament and compare them. In the Old Testament, there's a theme of God's wrath and anger. You see his wrath when he floods the whole world in the story with Noah. But you also see his anger and his wrath when he smites his enemies. So when the people of Israel are fighting in a war against another tribe or another nation or whoever it is, then suddenly God acts and he kills all of their enemies, and they suddenly celebrate that God has killed his own sons and daughters, his own creation. But it's not only other people that are killed, like Egyptians and the other tribes. It's also the people of Israel that gets killed. When they're walking in the desert, suddenly God gets mad about something and he then slays thousands upon thousands of Hebrew people that should be his chosen people when they act out and do wrongdoings. So God is really angry a lot of the times. He kills off the whole world, or tries to, with the story of Noah. He kills off the enemies of his chosen people. He kills his chosen people. And he also requires sacrifices and rituals and rules to be upheld and withheld for those who follow him. But God is also multifold in the Old Testament, and there's a lot of writings about his mercy and his compassion and his endurance and so forth. But for the sake of argument, I wanted to contrast the different points of views from the Old Testament and the New Testament. Okay, what about God in the New Testament? Well, it's fairly easy. God in the New Testament is Jesus. And what does that tell us about God then? Well, it tells us that God is humble and that he is merciful. It also tells us that God in New Testament is the kingdom of God, personified and incarnated in Jesus Christ. So is Jesus only then happy and like party, everything is good, everything is fine? Nope, he's not. And he stands up against one thing in particular, and that is the religiosity of the Hebrew, the Jewish people at that time. They have managed to make the rules of the faith into the God of the faith. So part of what Jesus is acting against or standing up against, and where he's not a nice guy, or you might say that he's direct, what he's actually doing is calling out the Hebrew people for making the religion into an idol instead of worshiping God as he is. God in the New Testament, he heals the sick, he raises the dead, and he does not seek to express his wrath and anger at any point truly, but instead he expresses his compassion towards the meek. So we have these two completely different books that express God in really different ways. God of the Old Testament, the warrior king, the avenger, the angry God that wants to punish everybody, who is also merciful at times. And then we have the New Testament, the humble servant that is compassionate towards the meek, who came with one purpose only, to start the kingdom of God, where the meek would be the blessed. So how do you reconcile the gap? How do you push it together? Well, it might actually not even be possible to truly reconcile and push this together. But I think there's a solution. There's a path to walk here. And the solution is to see the Old Testament through the lens of Jesus Christ. To let him take you by the hand and then read the Old Testament with his heart in your heart and with his eyes as your eyes. And I think the main issue underlying this is that we as human people, as civilizations, as a race, we always express how we understand and experience God through a cultural lenses of the time we live in. And that's really clear in the Old Testament, where it's tribal values. People of Israel were a tribe before, and then it's kingdom value when they turn into a kingdom. You can see how what's important for tribal people or for people that has a kingdom suddenly becomes the most important themes in the Bible. Even the process from going from tribe to kingdom, where conquering is the most important thing. You see that as a theme when that's the journey that the tribe of Israel is going through. And in the New Testament, you clearly see the expectations that the Hebrews in Israel had towards the coming of this new Messiah. And who would he be? Well, he would be a political figure, and he would be a military figure. He would turn over the Roman government, and they would be able to become independent, just like the kingdom days with David and Solomon. He would restore the state, the nation, the kingdom of Israel back to its glory days. Make Israel great again. And that is the underlying cultural values that we can see expressed in the New Testament. But Jesus does something completely contradicting. Instead of creating the kingdom of Jerusalem, he creates the kingdom of God right here amongst us. So Jesus is probably the key and the only solution we truly can get to try and at least reconcile some of the New and Old Testament in a good and fruitful way. Whatever makes sense when looking at the Old Testament through the lenses of Jesus Christ, that is probably an expression of God's presence amongst his people, and they have written down about this presence and God's actions amongst them. But whatever contradicts what we know about Jesus Christ and how he expressed himself, well, that might be narratives trying to attribute things to God that he might not really have caused or have done. An example of this is how Israel always attribute the victories to that God is with us and therefore we won. Our God is stronger and he's only with us, not with you. Therefore we won. And when they lose, it's either because they have misunderstood God or they have not acted properly. So God is punishing them by not being with them in battle anymore. And it's never because the enemy military was just stronger. If they lose, then it's God's fault. If they win, it's God's fault. God clearly acts in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I really think we can harmonize a lot if we invite Jesus into this journey. But we humans have developed in a lot of different directions during the time of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and today. And the Bible clearly shows that in its writings as well. Maybe we can't reconcile completely the God in the Old Testament and the New Testament, but Jesus can. And I think that we can learn from it no matter what. But if we dare to be critical towards the historical context, who knows what Jesus will show us when we read the next time then. God bless you in your journey.